So we are talking about friendship tonight, and I want to start with this. We are all, each of us, living through an epidemic that we probably don't know that we're in, and it's not drugs or alcohol or pornography. Although those are real. It's loneliness. A study after study shows that men today are more cut off, more isolated, more starved for real friendship than any generation in history. In 1990, 3% of Americans, 3%, said they had no close friends. Last year, that number had increased 6 times, and that's everybody, but it's especially true of men. Among working class men, 1 in 4 say they don't have a single close friend. It's gone so far that the Surgeon General called loneliness a public health crisis and said the health risks of being socially isolated are the same as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Okay. Men are literally dying for lack of brothers. And you can feel it. Men don't admit it, but you know it in your gut. You've got acquaintances, you have coworkers, you have teammates, you have neighbors. But how many real brothers do you have? How many men could you call at 2 a.m. and know they would just be there at the drop of a hat? How many men know your real battles, your temptations, your scars, your pain, your dreams, your hopes? The truth is, most men don't. Most men live their lives isolated and alone. And our culture has made it almost impossible for men to bond together. And it feels like that's by design. Like we are being isolated and pushed apart. 20 years ago, Americans spent less time at home. There were these things called third places. Places where men would gather. It'd be the job site, the shop, the union hall, the ball field, the lodge, church's men's group, a pub. Today we spend way more time at home than we ever have. And remote work means a quarter of work days are spent at home on average. We stream our shows at home, we order our food to our homes, we play our games at home, and if we're honest, we hide at home. So where do men meet? Where do men forge brotherhood? The reality is we don't. We drift. And then the church, instead of helping, often makes things worse. Sit in a circle, sing Kumbaya, open up about your feelings. Nothing's wrong with feelings, nothing's wrong with honesty, but that is not how men bond. That is not how they build brotherhood. That's not how you build trust. In order to trust on that level as a man, we have to test each other. I need to see you work. I need to see you sweat. I need to see you bleed. I need to see how you can take a punch so I know if I can trust you. So men come to church, and that trust is demanded up front without any test. And we try, and maybe we squirm, and then we leave. Silent, maybe angry, like it's an offense to my manhood that I was being asked and required to just suddenly get open and vulnerable with somebody that I don't trust. And that's the world that we were born into, where we were isolated and disconnected and starving for brotherhood, and we don't know where to start. So the question is, why is that happening? And what does God have to say about it? Why are men so alone, so disconnected, and so unsure even how to do friendship with other men? One reason is that most of us grew up over-mothered and under-fathered. And that's not a slam on moms. Moms are awesome. Moms are a gift from God. Most of us wouldn't be here if it wasn't for our moms. Well, none of us would be here if it wasn't for our moms. But most of us wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for the prayer and perseverance of our moms. But something happens in a culture where fathers are absent or passive. Moms, often out of fear and with good intentions, try to make up the gap, but they don't know how. So it ends up usually looking like control or manipulation. Moms don't understand boys. So they try to get the boys to talk and to open up, to share their feelings. And generally speaking, that's just not how boys work. Boys with no fathers then are often just managed instead of mentored. Instead of channeling masculine behavior, what happens is they have their desire for risk, their need for danger, their will to fight snuffed out of them because it's a threat. And mom wants everybody safe. Boys are told to be quiet, to be safe, to calm down, and to behave. And their energy is seen then as a problem to be solved, not a strength to be trained. Their risk-taking is shut down. Their aggression is shamed. And slowly but surely, the boys get the message. Your instincts are wrong. Your strength is dangerous. Tone it down. Color inside the lines. You are toxic by design. You are problematic by nature, unlike girls. This is what the school system is built around. And then the guilt and the shame and the feelings are used as a lever for control and manipulation. That's over-mothering, and it leaves a deep mark. And it's no wonder then that some boys decide, well, since my nature is wrong, maybe I should try to change my nature. Mom wishes I was a girl. The whole school system, the whole world that I grew up in, wants me to be a girl or like a girl. I want to make mom happy. Maybe I should just be a girl. But then it's not just what boys get too much of. It's also what they get too little of. The whole reason this even happens is that they're also under-fathered. Because a father doesn't just protect. A father activates. He pushes his son out into the world. He wrestles with them and roughhouses with them. He tests his limits. He says, let's climb that tree. Let's see how high we can go. Let's see how hard we can push it. Let's see if we can throw that ball a little harder. Let's see what we can really do. And in that push, in the rough and tumble, in the place of calibrated risk where it's safe because dad's there, a boy learns courage and he learns his limits. He learns what he really can do. He learns how to regulate his emotions. He learns how to calm himself down when he's being tickled. He learns how to get back up on his feet when he's knocked down. He learns what to do with his strength. He learns, I've got what it takes. He learns that maybe what he doesn't need to do is sit around and talk about his feelings. Maybe what he needs to do is just go out and play some more. Maybe he needs to go out and build something or conquer something or make something. Without that, boys grow up soft and fearful or hard and brittle. But either way, they're unformed and they don't know how to relate to other men because they were never trained side by side with men who could set the balance. And when you put that over-mothering and under-fathering together, the fruit is men who are confused about masculine affection. Men who don't know how to be close to other men because it feels weird. So then what happens? Some men then eroticize that. They sexualize that longing for male closeness. That father hunger, that hunger for brotherhood is weaponized against them in a disconnected and sex-obsessed culture. And so they think, well, I want to be close with other men, and I'm told that that's like gayness, and so I guess that means I must be gay. Others reject it totally. They mock loyalty and masculine affection as gay or weird because it's just that, this false dichotomy. And they don't know what to do with it. And they think, well, I guess just being a man is being alone. It's being a lone wolf. So most men then just stay alone and isolated. And that's not a tiny pocket of men. It's systemic. In 1960, only 9% of men, or kids rather, grew up in single-parent homes. Do you know what that number is today? It's 25%, 1 in 4. 1 in 4. And most of those without fathers. We have raised a fatherless generation. You were raised in a culture that overmanaged you and that underdeveloped you, that controlled you without activating you, that softened you without strengthening you. And then we wonder why it's so hard to make friends, to have brothers, to have bonds and friendships that are meaningful and that last. And that's why. And this is where we need to slow down and where we need to see God's design. Because if we don't, we'll then try to fix the problem in ways that actually make the problems worse. We'll try to fix men in a way that breaks them further. Men and women were both made in the image of God. Both are very good, both are essential, but men and women are different. If you didn't know that, it's true. And that means men and women also bond differently. And that's not a mistake. It's design. It's written into our biology. Women bond face to face. You think about a group of women in a coffee shop sitting across from each other. They talk. They process. They share feelings. They connect by verbal intimacy. Biologically, that is driven by something called oxytocin. It is a bonding hormone that is released in childbirth and breastfeeding and hugging and crying and deep talk, and it's modulated by estrogen. We have estrogen too, but not like women do. Oxytocin says, draw close, open up, and let's connect. And that's why under stress, women tend and befriend. They move towards relational closeness when they're under pressure. They make memes about this sort of thing, right? Right? A woman says, my best friend of 15 years left me on red. I don't know if we're friends. I don't know. What does this mean, right? Meanwhile, like your best friend from high school from 20 years ago that you haven't talked to in 10 years, you get together and it's like nothing ever happened, right? Why is that? Women bond face to face, and that requires face to face maintenance. But men are different. Men bond shoulder to shoulder. You think about a group of men, they're not face to face at a coffee table. They're shoulder to shoulder. They're hunting, they're roofing a house, they're grinding through a practice, they're pushing each other in a gym, and that's where connection is built. And that's where men begin to talk and open up. Biologically, that's fueled by something called vasopressin. It's a bonding hormone that's tied to testosterone. Vasopressin drives loyalty and territorial defense and protection and perseverance. It says, stand with me, protect with me. We're in this together. We're doing something. And that's why under stress, men are prone to fight or flight. Vasopressin channels that instinct into brotherhood. We band together. We fight together. We defend the ground. We fight as one. And with that comes an undercurrent of loyalty and trust that is built over time, built through fire. Put simply, oxytocin says, talk to me. Vasopressin says, stand with me. This, by the way, is also why you don't wake up at night with the baby, if you've ever wondered that. And why you do wake up when the leaves rustle outside. And why your wife doesn't. It's not a joke. Like, they've actually done studies on this sort of thing. A baby crying will wake up mom immediately while dad sleeps through it. The baby triggers oxytocin pathways in mom that women are very sensitive to. Mom needs the baby to be okay. Leaves rustling outside the window triggers vasopressin. It's the sound of a threat. Men will sit bolt upright at the slightest sound of a threat while our wives sleep. Dude is locked in instantly. Mom sleeps through it. Neither's better, neither's worse. It's just different. Different by God's design. Because men and women are different. Why does this matter? Why am I talking about this? Because in our culture and even in our churches, we've built discipleship around estrogen-driven oxytocin forms. Feminine forms of bonding. Sit in a circle, share your feelings, be vulnerable right away. And men sit there squirming and feel out of place. Some fake it, right? I guess I gotta act like a woman in order to be a Christian. Some shut down. Most don't come back. Not because they're unwilling to connect, but because we're trying to make them connect in a way that God did not wire us to. Men open up after work, not before. Men bond through shared mission, shared sweat, shared battle. And then they talk as they decompress from the work they just did. We've all felt that, right? Like if you've been on a baseball team or something like that, you go to war together, and then the bus ride home is where you loosen up and where you really forge your friendships, right? You go on a mission trip or you have a work day. You go out there and you sweat alongside each other, and afterwards you decompress. And that's where you feel safe to talk, because you've just worked. You've just sweat. You've taken each other's measure. I can trust you because I saw how hard you work. I saw you sacrifice. I saw you make that diving play. I saw you run into the fence. I saw you smash your thumb with a hammer, shake it off, and get back to work because there was a job to do. That means something to us. That triggers something in us that says, I can trust you. I can work side by side with you. I know you're not going to back down in a fight. I know you're not going to leave me to carry the work by myself. Now we can talk. That's not weakness or immaturity. It's just God's design. Men need to test each other before we can trust each other. Because there's more at stake in our relationships than feelings. On a battlefield, it means our lives or the lives of our families. Which, by the way, is why soldiers and veterans have some of the strongest bonds that you'll ever see. If you talk to men who've actually been in foxholes, man, I was talking to a guy not long ago, and he's like, look, I'm a Christian, but there are a couple of guys that I was in war with, and if they called me and said I had a body to bury, I wouldn't question it. Now, he was joking, but he wasn't joking. You understand that feeling, right? I hope you do. They call it a band of brothers for a reason. You've lived, you've bled, you've fought, you've buried friends together. We see that sort of thing all over Scripture too. And so this is a study of the life of David, and we're looking at David. And David's a great example of friendship because David is a man after God's own heart. And David never fought alone. Last week we talked about David and Goliath. And he did go into that battle alone. But let's go back to the scene. Let's picture it and let's see what happens next. David just steps out of the shadows. Nobody saw him coming. He wasn't in the army. He wasn't a warrior. He was a shepherd boy with a sling. And yet in front of the whole nation, he takes down Goliath, who is the giant that Saul would not fight. And who Saul's son Jonathan would not fight. And who all of Israel would not fight. So Jonathan, Saul's son, is standing there watching that. He sees David walk onto the battlefield with nothing but a sling and 5 stones. He sees him run at the giant when everybody else trembles. He sees him plant the stone in the center of Goliath's forehead, knock him down, take the giant's own sword, cut off his head. And Jonathan knows in this moment, this boy just saved my life and my father's kingdom and all of Israel. So then what happens next? This is what Scripture says. The soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. That word knit means bound or tied or woven together. It's not a casual thing. It's not just a handshake or a golf buddy. This is a covenant bond being forged between these two men. Jonathan proves it. He takes off his royal robe, the sign of his inheritance. He puts it on David. He gives David his armor, his sword, his bow, and his belt. Jonathan's the heir to the throne. He is Saul's son, but he strips himself of all the royal symbols and he lays them on David. And that's loyalty and humility and covenant friendship. And it's not just cheap sentiment for these men. Their brotherhood is then tested in fire over and over. As Saul continues to decline, as he continues to stray from the Lord and to grasp his power and his control, and as Saul's jealousy boils over, Jonathan is continually forced to choose. My dad, who's going off the rails, betraying the nation, betraying God, betraying everyone who loves him, or my brother David, who loves my father, who loves the nation, and who loves God. So Jonathan chooses David. Jonathan risks his own life to warn him, to protect him, to send him away in safety. They have a secret meeting in a field. Do you remember the story? Saul is determined to kill David. David knows it. Jonathan won't believe it. Jonathan shoots the arrows as a signal. Everybody knows now Saul really does mean to kill him. They meet, they embrace, they weep together. These grown men, these warriors who fought together in battle. Covenant brothers, mourning the cost of their loyalty. They're going to part ways. Later, when Jonathan dies in battle, David doesn't shrug it off. He doesn't say, well, that's war. What he does is he tears his clothes and he writes a lament. He says, I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. Very pleasant have you been to me. Your love to me was extraordinary, surpassing the love of women. Now, don't get that twisted, right? That's not romance. It's not sexuality. It's just loyalty under fire. Jonathan's covenant love was a kind of faithfulness that no romance could ever replace in David's life. It was brotherhood forged in battle and sealed in blood and mourned in tears. The reality is every man needs a Jonathan, a man who will knit his soul to yours, a man who will put your good above his own comfort, who will risk family pressure and career success, even his own life, to be loyal to you, because he's a friend, he's a brother. And that kind of friend is rare. But he's worth more than gold. Jonathan wasn't David's only brother. David also had his mighty men. David then left, and he went on the run from Saul, and he was hiding in caves. And when he was hiding in caves, who came to him? Scripture says, everyone who was in distress, and everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was bitter in soul gathered to him, and he became commander over them. Okay? Let me read that again and just catch it. Everyone who was in distress, everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was bitter in soul. Not the dream team, right? Not exactly SEAL Team 6 showing up. They're the misfits, the outcasts, and the losers. But under David's leadership, they became warriors. They became brothers. So that by the end of David's life, they're not just the distressed They're legends. 2 Samuel 23 lists their names for eternity. There's these guys whose names, you can't really pronounce, like Josheb, Bashebeth. He killed 800 men with a spear in one day. Eleazar, who fought until his hand stuck to his sword. Shammah, who stood in the middle of a lentil field while everyone else ran and just struck down Philistines until the Lord brought victory. And then there's this wonderful story of these three of David's mighty men who broke through the Philistine camp just to bring David water from the well at Bethlehem. Everybody's tired. David just sighs and says, man, I wish I had water from the well of Bethlehem, from his hometown. And these men said, David wants water from Bethlehem. If the king wants water, we will get him water. They broke through the lines to get water from the well at Bethlehem and brought it back, risking their lives to and David then is like so moved. He's not going to drink it, right? He says it'd be like drinking their blood. I didn't mean for you to risk your lives so I could have a drink of water. But this is the relationship that they had, so he pours it out as an offering to the Lord. That kind of loyalty is not forged in small talk. It's not built in a coffee shop. It's forged in caves, in danger, and shared battles. Every man needs mighty men. Not just one Jonathan, but a band of brothers who will bleed with you, who will risk their lives for you, who will go into enemy territory just because you side. They may start as misfits. They may come distressed in debt, bitter in soul. Right? I was just speaking at a conference a couple weeks back, and I was introduced by the host as, what he said is, we were poor together. We were poor together. It's true, we were poor. We were living in government-subsidized housing, both of us, in the same neighborhood, trying to figure out life and ministry and family. Friends may come distressed, in debt, bitter in soul, but together by God's grace, you're forged into a band of brothers who can rise from that and change the world. And then David didn't just have Jonathans and mighty men, he also had a Nathan. Nathan was a prophet. He was also David's friend. And when David sinned, which we'll talk about in a couple weeks, when he took Bathsheba and murdered her husband Uriah, Nathan didn't stay quiet. Nathan came to David with a parable about a rich man stealing a poor man's lamb. David burned with anger, you know the story. The man who's done this deserves to die. And Nathan pointed the finger and said, you're the man. That's a courage. That could have cost Nathan his life. But that risk saved David's soul. David repented. David wrote Psalm 51. History changed. Every man needs a Nathan, a brother who will wound you with truth, who loves you enough to say, you're the man who will call you out, not to destroy you, but to save you. That pattern runs straight through the New Testament. Jesus himself surrounded himself with 12 men. And even among those men, within the 12, he had an inner three. It's Peter, James, and John. Those guys went up on the mountain with him. They went deeper into Gethsemane with him. They saw his glory and they saw his agony. Paul, the Apostle Paul, he never rolled solo. He had Barnabas and Silas and Timothy and Luke. He always had brothers. There were always teams. David didn't fight alone. Paul didn't fight alone. The only battle Jesus fought alone was the one that only he could fight. So if you look at the pattern in Scripture, what you'll see is that God may call you to stand against the crowd, but he rarely calls you to stand without brothers. And even when you do feel utterly alone, God himself reminds you, I've kept a remnant. You're not alone. Okay, so that's David. Man after God's own heart. Jonathan, mighty men, Nathan. But to feel the weight of that, you need to see the contrast. Because right next to David in the story stands Saul. And Saul is the picture of what happens when you refuse brotherhood. Saul starts with promise. He's head and shoulders taller than everybody. He is strong, he is handsome, he is anointed by Samuel. He's filled with the Spirit of God. He rallies the tribes, he defeats the Ammonites. He looks like the leader that Israel wanted. But then the cracks start to show. And at the heart of it all is this: Saul is a man who fought alone. He was a man who from start to finish was deeply insecure, and he could never overcome that. He never had the faith to overcome it. And so if you think about all of his relationships, what you see is that he burned them all. With Samuel, his spiritual father, he grows impatient. He won't wait for the prophet. He makes sacrifices on his own. He refuses to trust him. That act of impatience severs the relationship with the man who had anointed him. With David, instead of rejoicing in his victory, Saul grows jealous. When David kills Goliath, the women sing, Saul has struck down his thousands and David his 10,000s. Saul hears that honor as an insult. Every time David succeeds, Saul sees betrayal. Saul actually starts sending David into the fight over and over and over and over again, hoping that David would die in battle. He just keeps sending him out to fight at the front lines with the Philistines, hoping that he'll die and fall. Let the Philistines take care of him. And David keeps succeeding, and he keeps getting more jealous, till he's ready to kill him. And the truth is, there's no one in all of Saul's life who's more loyal to Saul than David. It's really heartbreaking, especially when you see that loyalty to Saul continue even after Saul dies. We'll get to that in coming weeks too. But then, look at this too, which I think if you're a dad should break your heart. Because his son Jonathan is a good man. He's a man of God. He's a man of integrity. But even with Jonathan, his own son, Saul can't celebrate loyalty. Jonathan stands with David. Saul throws a spear at him too. Imagine your own father trying to kill you because you chose loyalty to God and to a friend who's loyal to you. Jonathan's caught in the middle of everything. And so it ends up costing him everything. With the people, Saul rules by fear. He threatens and manipulates and triangulates. He sets people against each other. Instead of building trust, what he does is breed suspicion. That's what isolated men do. They push away the very people that God gave them for strength. They demand loyalty, but they never give loyalty. They test everyone, but they trust no one. That's how Saul works. He's always triangulating people. He's pitting David against Jonathan. He's pitting Jonathan against himself. He pits the people against David. He even pits David's wife against David, who's his daughter, by the way. It's a strategy of insecure men. Instead of building brotherhood, they build webs of suspicion. Instead of drawing men together, they pull men apart. And in the end, Saul trusts no one. He's a king of a nation surrounded by soldiers with a son who loves him and a warrior who saved his throne and is loyal to him. And yet Saul is utterly alone. And where does it all lead? Well, in the end, Saul has no Jonathan, no mighty men, no Nathan, no Samuel, no David, no brotherhood. So when he needs counsel, he doesn't turn to a prophet. He doesn't have a friend to turn to, so he turns to a witch at Endor. God's anointed king sneaking in the night to ask a witch to conjure up the dead for advice. That's where his isolation takes him. When the Philistines overwhelm him on Mount Gilboa, he looks around and nobody's there. His sons are dead. His army is scattered. His brothers are gone. There is no Jonathan. There are no mighty men. There's nobody. Just Saul, wounded, desperate, and alone. And so he falls on his own sword. The once anointed king, the man who had everything, dies in isolation, distrusted, paranoid, and alone. You see the contrast. David gathers. Saul scatters. David builds covenant. Saul breaks trust. David surrounds himself with Jonathans and mighty men and Nathans, and Saul alienates them all. David's life produces wisdom that then blesses his sons, blesses his son Solomon. Saul's life ends in despair with his sons dead. David fought with brothers, Saul fought alone. So Saul dies alone. This is the friendship test. Which man are you becoming? Are you becoming David or are you becoming Saul? If you isolate yourself, if you triangulate, if you refuse to trust, if you push away the men that God gives you, you're walking the path of Saul, and you may think it's strength, but it will end in paranoia and fear and despair. Saul shows us the cost of isolation. But if you embrace covenant friendship, like David and Jonathan, if you fight with your mighty men, if you welcome the truth of a Nathan, you're walking David's path. That produces life and wisdom and a legacy. Don't be Saul. Don't push people away. Don't die alone on your own sword. Be like David. Build covenant friendships. Surround yourself with mighty men. Welcome Nathans to tell you the truth. Pass the wisdom that you've gained onto your sons so they can stand in a world that's falling. Because at the end of the day, everyone in this room will look like a David or a Saul. One fought with brothers, the other died alone. And the question is, which will you be? Now, David didn't just live these friendships. He learned from them. He passed that wisdom on to his son Solomon. And you need to think about this too. Solomon grew up watching a lot of this. He heard the stories of Jonathan. He might have seen the mighty men at his father's table. He might have known Nathan the prophet. At the very least, he knew the stories. And when Solomon sat down to write Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, you hear the echo of David's friendship in his words. Solomon took that wisdom, he spelled it out for fathers and sons in Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. These books are a father pulling his sons aside and saying, son, listen to me. You're not going to make it in this world without wisdom. And one of the wisest things you'll ever do is choose your brothers well. So I want to spend a little bit of time and just talk about what Solomon says, what David's son says about friendship, because it's David's legacy. And then your sons will build on the legacy that you give them. You're setting your boys up to be Jonathan or Solomon, depending on whether or not you choose the path of Saul or David. The first thing that Proverbs shows us is the difference between a real friend and a fake one. Proverbs 17 says, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. It's one of the most famous proverbs on friendship, and for good reason. It means a true friend doesn't disappear when things get hard. A real brother shows up because things got hard. Contrast that with what Proverbs also says. Wealth brings many new friends, but a poor man is deserted by his friend. Many seek the favor of a generous man, and everyone is a friend to a man who gives gifts. See the difference, right? One kind of friend sticks around when you have something to offer. He loves the perks. He loves what you do for him. You take away the perks and he vanishes. The other kind of friend, the real kind, loves you when you have nothing. He was born for your adversity. That's when real brotherhood shows up. So what kind of friend are you? Do you only show up when it's fun? When it's easy? When there's something in it for you? Or are you the kind of friend who's born for adversity? Who runs toward a brother in trouble and not away? On the other side, who are the men in your life who you can count on when the bottom falls out? You'll know your true brothers not when you're on top of the world, but when you're lying flat on your back. True friendship isn't just about loyalty, though. It's about making each other better. We've all heard this one, right? Iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another. It's one of those verses that gets quoted a lot in men's ministries. But the image is real, and it's quoted in men's ministries a lot for a reason. Iron sharpening iron is not smooth. It's not painless. Sparks fly, the edges grind, but the end result is a sharper blade. And that's what brothers are for. They're not just there to pat you on the back and tell you everything's fine. They're there to make you sharper and stronger and more effective for God. That's why Proverbs says, faithful are the wounds of a friend, profuse are the kisses of an enemy. A true friend will wound you in love. He'll tell you hard truth that you don't want to hear. That's real loyalty. An enemy will flatter you and keep you comfortable and let you walk off a cliff. But a friend will wound you to save you. And then there's this one. Oil and perfume make the heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. Have you ever sat down with a brother and just walked away refreshed and clear-headed? Like steady? It's the sweetness of real counsel from somebody who loves you. It's like fragrance. It can change the whole atmosphere of your soul, your whole outlook on life. Do you have brothers who sharpen you? Do you have brothers who can wound you faithfully? Do you have brothers who refresh you with godly counsel? If not, you walk into battle with a dull blade. Proverbs warns us to choose our friends carefully. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. You become like the men that you walk with. If your closest circle is wise, you'll grow in wisdom. If your closest circle is foolish, you'll suffer harm. Not might, but will. That's why Proverbs also says, make no friendship with a man given to anger, nor go with a wrathful man, lest you learn his ways. Friendship will disciple you, it will train you, it will teach you. Every man you let close is shaping you either toward Jesus or away from him. And once you find real friends, you can't let them go. Do not forsake your friend or your father's friend, and do not go to your brother's house in the day of calamity. Better is a neighbor who's near than a brother who's far away. Don't burn bridges with old friends. Don't walk away from brothers who have been loyal. Real brotherhood has generational value. It's the kind of thing that you pass down to your sons. Ecclesiastes gives us another angle. It tells us not just what friendship is, but what friendship does. Two are better than one because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. This is practical, right? Two men working together get more done, right? Two men fighting together can protect each other. If one man stumbles, the other can pick him up. But the man who's alone, woe to him. He falls and there's nobody there. Then Solomon goes on, again, if two lie together, they keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, two will withstand him. A threefold cord is not quickly broken. In other words, isolation is death. Brotherhood is survival. And threefold brotherhood, a threefold cord is not easily broken. That's why David had Jonathan, and why he had his mighty men. It's why even Jesus surrounded himself with 12 disciples. Brotherhood multiplies strength, and isolation multiplies weakness. Proverbs also gives us warnings. Brotherhood can be destroyed from the inside. Proverbs 27:4 says, wrath is cruel, anger is overwhelming, but who can stand before jealousy? Jealousy is deadly. It's what drove Cain to kill Abel. It's what made Joseph's brother sell him into slavery, and it's what poisoned Saul against David. Nothing destroys brotherhood faster than envy. Then there's isolation. Whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire. He breaks out against all sound judgment. And some of you are walking this path, I think. You're isolated and you think you're strong on your own. You think you don't need brothers. The proverb says that's not wise, it's foolish. You're not protecting yourself. You're opening yourself to harm and destruction. You're rejecting counsel and walking blind into disaster. Isolation is not strength. It's suicide. What's the crown of all this wisdom? It's this. Friendship's not just about you and your buddy. It points beyond itself. All of Proverbs and Ecclesiastes speak about a friend who loves at all times, a brother who's born for adversity, who wounds us with truth, who heals us with grace, who sticks closer than a brother. Jesus said it himself, greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. That's the friend we need most. It's a friend who empowers us to be brothers like him. So men, choose your brothers wisely. Be the kind of friend who runs into adversity, not away, who leans in and not out. Refuse isolation, sharpen each other and be sharpened. Look to Jesus, the truest friend, the brother who laid down his life to make you his own. Because the world does not need more isolated men. The world needs a band of brothers, bands of brothers, covenanted in Christ, sharpening one another, standing shoulder to shoulder in the battle, refusing to quit, refusing to give up on each other, refusing to walk away. That's wisdom and friendship and brotherhood. Now, before we close, I want to say something to every man in this room who's married. Your wife should be your best friend. She is your covenant partner. She is bone of your bone. She is flesh of your flesh. She knows you more deeply than anyone else on earth. She is your lover, your counselor, your comforter, and your companion. Scripture says the two become one flesh. And that means she should be closer to you than any other person in your life. That's true. It's all true. But she cannot be your only friend. And she can't be your best friend in the same way that a brother can. Not because she's weak, not because she doesn't care, but simply because she's not a man. There are parts of the male burden that she cannot carry because she wasn't designed to carry them. The pressure to provide, the responsibility to protect, the temptation to hide or run when life gets heavy, the fear of not being enough. She can love you in those moments. She can encourage you. She can pray for you. She can be a kind of strength for you. But she cannot look you in the eye and say, I know this weight. I have been there and I've carried it too. That's what brothers are for. Jonathan could say that to David. The mighty men could say that to each other. Nathan could say that when he confronted David. Brothers can say, I know this ground, I know this temptation, I have fought this battle, and I can carry this with you. That works both ways too. Your wife needs friends and bonds that only women can meet. There are conversations she can only have with sisters and mothers in Christ. There are burdens of motherhood and womanhood that no man will ever fully understand. That's good, that's okay, that's design. Women need women and men need men. But here's what happens when you don't have brothers. You put all of that pressure on your wife. And you make her not just carry the weight of being your partner, but the weight of being your only support system. And that can crush her. Your wife will flourish best if you have brothers that you can lean on for strength. Because when you're strengthened by your brothers, you can come home steadier. You can come home with your burdens lighter. You can come home with joy in your heart instead of loneliness in your soul. She doesn't have to carry everything for you because your brothers are helping you carry it. So yeah, make your wife your best friend, your closest companion, your lover, your friend. Share everything with her, cherish her. Lean on her for strength. But don't make her your only friend. God did not design her to carry all of that weight. He designed you to need brothers. David had Jonathan, he had his mighty men, he had Nathan. Jesus had his 12, Paul had his team. Nobody God used fought alone. So the question is, will you fight alone or will you fight with brothers? If you fight alone, you will fall. Isolation will break you. Shallow relationships and buddies won't hold you. A wife without brothers at your back will buckle under the weight. And the enemy would love nothing more than to keep you alone and ashamed and disconnected. But if you fight with brothers, if you find your Jonathans and keep covenant, if you stand shoulder to shoulder with men who you can trust to bleed with you and for you, who will fight with you and for you, who will tell you the truth when you're drifting, then you'll stand and you'll be strong. And your wife will flourish and your children will be secure and strong. And you will hand them a legacy like Solomon instead of one like Jonathan. And your church will be built on men who fight shoulder to shoulder instead of men who sit alone, isolated in shame. So find your Jonathans. Be a Jonathan to others. Step into deeper brotherhood, even when it costs. Don't fight alone, don't live alone, don't die alone. Fight shoulder to shoulder with your brothers. Let me pray for you.